Hello dear students, welcome to the lecture 12 of Security of Information Systems. Today's topic is application security. The outline is as follows: application security, malicious software, attacks on applications, secure system development, and then security by design, industrial approach. Okay, how do computers get infected? Let's see the various ways there are. Executing attachments to emails which contains exploits or malicious programs. This is one of the most common ways of getting infected. The emails that are sent by hackers. But these hackers usually uses your friends' emails. What I mean is, for example, let's say you made a mistake and your computer got infected. Then they sent emails to your friends from your email address. So they gain trust. Okay. Because you say that, oh, this is coming from my friend, therefore it should be safe. No. You should be very careful even from the people that you know. Okay. This is one of the mistakes that is being made. So from whoever the mail comes, if it is looking suspicious, then you have to be careful. Also, you should have a good antivirus software because they can scan the attachments and prevent that attachment from infecting your computer and such.
Accessing a malicious or infected website which contains a malicious script, or installing and starting malicious programs from a website.
Okay, this is another way. This is harder though, because if you are using a decent browser such as Google Chrome latest version or Firefox latest version, they would usually prevent your computer getting infected without your action. What I mean is, let's say there is a script that will download and run an exe on your computer. For it to work, the browser would ask your permission. Okay. Therefore, this one is harder, but still possible. So you should be careful of the websites that you are visiting. This is one of the most common. Another way.
Direct attacks from the network, which e.g. exploit vulnerabilities in OS or applications such web servers or SQL databases.
Okay, this is perhaps the hardest way of getting infected unless you are using an unpatched operating system or applications. Most common way is for this scenario is the developer mistakes. What I mean is when developer is programming their software, when developers are programming their software, if they don't be careful, they may leave vulnerabilities and exploits which can be then discovered by the hackers fully automatically or semi-automatically or such, and then they can use that vulnerability to hack your system. Okay. However, if you are using professional software that is being updated frequently, such as operating system from Microsoft or SQL server management system, SQL server from Microsoft and such, they usually get patched and they are usually highly secure, unless, as I said, you make a mistake yourself. Instead of installing infected malicious software, this is of course one of the most common ways, because when you download, especially pirate software, they may contain viruses and Trojans and such. So this is of course another common way of getting infected. And another way is plugging in external devices that are infected with malicious software. This is also very common. Why? Let's say you are going to school to get some files from your library, and you stick your USB into the library's computer, and in such public places it is highly possible that computer is already infected. Okay, and those malicious software are usually very good to copy themselves into the external devices such as USB, USB sticks, USB hard drives. Therefore, it is a great way for a virus or for a Trojan to um, get itself copied or get itself infecting the other computers. Okay. So what are the malware types?
Backdoor or trapdoor.
Okay, let's look what is backdoor or trapdoor. Okay, backdoor.
Also called a manhole or trapdoor, a backdoor is a concealed means of bypassing security to gain access to a restricted part of a computer system. For example, a programmer may insert a piece of code that would allow them access to a computer or secure area using a password that only they know.
There have been some serious backdoors even in professional software. I believe backdoor left in Linux compile or some program compile there were. Compiler. I don't remember exactly, but I will find it for you. Okay, backdoor computing. Okay, let's read from Wikipedia.
A backdoor is a typically covert method of bypassing normal authentication or encryption in a computer, product, embedded device, e.g. a home router, or its embodiment, e.g. part of a cryptosystem, algorithm, chipset, or even a homunculus computer, a tiny computer within a computer such as that found in Intel's AMT technology. 2. Backdoors are most often used for securing remote access to a computer, or obtaining access to plaintext in cryptographic systems. From there it may be used to gain access to privileged information like passwords, corrupt or delete data on hard drives, or transfer information within autoscediastic networks. A backdoor may take the form of a hidden part of a program. 3. A separate program, e.g. back orifice, may subvert the system through a rootkit, code in the firmware of the hardware. 4. Or parts of an operating system such as Windows. 5, 6, 7. Trojan horses can be used to create vulnerabilities in a device. A Trojan horse may appear to be an entirely legitimate program, but when executed, it triggers an activity that may install a backdoor. 8. Although some are secretly installed, other backdoors are deliberate and widely known. These kinds of backdoors have legitimate uses such as providing the manufacturer with a way to restore user passwords. Many systems that store information within the cloud fail to create accurate security measures. If many systems are connected within the cloud, hackers can gain access to all other platforms through the most vulnerable system. 9.
Okay. This is also important. Let's read this.
Default passwords or other default credentials can function as backdoors if they are not changed by the user. Some debugging features can also act as backdoors if they are not removed in the release version. 10.
Okay. I will find compiler backdoor. Okay. Okay, here. This one is.
In August 2009, an attack of this kind was discovered by Sophos Labs. The W32 Induc A virus infected the program compiler for Delphi, a Windows programming language. The virus introduced its own code to the compilation of new Delphi programs, allowing it to infect and propagate to many systems, without the knowledge of the software programmer. An attack that propagates by building its own Trojan horse can be especially hard to discover. It is believed that the Untitled virus had been propagating for at least a year before it was discovered. 23.
List of known vectors. Let's look for them. Okay, anyway, we get the idea of vector. Let's continue. Logic bomb. Let's look for what it is. Okay.
A logic bomb is a piece of code intentionally inserted into a software system that will set off a malicious function when specified conditions are met. For example, a programmer may hide a piece of code that starts deleting files, such as a salary database trigger, should they ever be terminated from the company. Software that is inherently malicious, such as viruses and worms, often contain logic bombs that execute a certain payload at a predefined time or when some other condition is met. This technique can be used by a virus or worm to gain momentum and spread before being noticed. Some viruses attack their host systems on specific dates, such as Friday the 13th or April Fool's Day. Trojans and other computer viruses that activate on certain dates are often called time bombs. To be considered a logic bomb, the payload should be unwanted and unknown to the user of the software. As an example, trial programs with code that disables certain functionality after a set time are not normally regarded as logic bombs.
Okay, so now we know the logic bomb. Let's look for Trojan horse.
The Trojan Horse is a story from the Trojan War about the subterfuge that the Greeks used to enter the independent city of Troy and win the war. In the canonical version, after a fruitless 10-year siege, the Greeks at the behest of Odysseus constructed a huge wooden horse and hid a select force of men inside, including Odysseus himself. The Greeks pretended to sail away, and the Trojans pulled the horse into their city as a victory trophy. That night the Greek force crept out of the horse and opened the gates for the rest of the Greek army, which had sailed back under cover of night. The Greeks entered and destroyed the city of Troy, ending the war. Metaphorically, a Trojan horse has come to mean any trick or stratagem that causes a target to invite a foe into a securely protected bastion or place. A malicious computer program that tricks users into willingly running it is also called a Trojan horse or simply a Trojan. The main ancient source for the story is the Aeneid of Virgil, a Latin epic poem from the time of Augustus. The event is also referred to in Homer's Odyssey. 1. In the Greek tradition, the horse is called the wooden horse, Dourteos hippos in Homeric, Ionic Greek, Odyssey 8.512, Dorios hippos in Attic Greek.
Okay, so this was the history of Trojan, and there is Trojan horse competing. I think you already have the idea, but let's read this one as well.
In computing, a Trojan horse 1, or simply Trojan 2, is any malware which misleads users of its true intent. The term is derived from the ancient Greek story of the deceptive Trojan horse that led to the fall of the city of Troy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Trojans are generally spread by some form of social engineering, for example where a user is duped into executing an email attachment disguised to appear not suspicious, e.g., a routine form to be filled in, or by clicking on some fake advertisement on social media or anywhere else. Although their payload can be anything, many modern forms act as a backdoor, contacting a controller which can then have unauthorized access to the affected computer. 6. Trojans may allow an attacker to access users' personal information such as banking information, passwords, or personal identity. It can also delete a user's files or infect other devices connected to the network. Ransomware attacks are often carried out using a Trojan. Unlike computer viruses, worms, and rogue security software, Trojans generally do not attempt to inject themselves into other files or otherwise propagate themselves. 7.
Okay, so okay, let's continue. So worm. Okay, computer virus, Wikipedia.
Computer worm. A computer worm is a standalone malware computer program that replicates itself in order to spread to other computers. 1. It often uses a computer network to spread itself, relying on security failures on the target computer to access it. It will use this machine as a host to scan and infect other computers. When these new worm-invaded computers are controlled, the worm will continue to scan and infect other computers using these computers as hosts, and this behavior will continue. 2. Computer worms use recursive methods to copy themselves without host programs and distribute themselves based on the law of exponential growth, thus controlling and infecting more and more computers in a short time. 3. Worms almost always cause at least some harm to the network, even if only by consuming bandwidth, whereas viruses almost always corrupt or modify files on a targeted computer. Many worms are designed only to spread, and do not attempt to change the systems they pass through. However, as the Morris worm and My Doom showed, even these payload-free worms can cause major disruption by increasing network traffic and other unintended effects.
All right, there is history and more information. Virus. Okay, computer virus.
A computer virus, 1, is a type of computer program that, when executed, replicates itself by modifying other computer programs and inserting its own code. 2. When this replication succeeds, the affected areas are then said to be infected with a computer virus. 3. 4. Computer viruses cause billions of dollars worth of economic damage each year. 5. In 1989, the Adapso Software Industry Division published Dealing with Electronic Vandalism. 6. In which they followed the risk of data loss by the added risk of losing customer confidence. 7, 8, 9. In response, free, open-source antivirus tools have been developed, and an industry of antivirus software has cropped up, selling or freely distributing virus protection to users of various operating systems. 10.
Okay, so there are subtypes. Stealth virus uses techniques to hide itself, e.g. encryption. Polymorphic virus, different for every system. Metamorphic virus, different after every activation on the same system. And then there is exploit.
And tool to infect systems by using malicious program or input data, e.g. document, that triggers and exploits a software bug in the systems.
Okay, so exploits. Let's start.
A piece of software, data, or a sequence of commands that exploits a software, hardware vulnerability. Can be carried in common data formats such as PDF documents, Office documents, or media files.
Okay.
Often contains carefully designed corrupt data types. Causes unintended or unanticipated behavior to occur on computer software or hardware. Exploit functionality typically is to download a program, backdoor, which allows the attacker to control the platform. Directly take control of a computer system, allowing privilege escalation, or a denial of service or other sabotage.
Okay, you see, this is extremely dangerous software.
Backdoor or trapdoor. Installed by exploit. Provides remote control capabilities by attackers. Can reside on system for long periods before being used. can be removed after use.
So this is the backdoor which is installed by exploit, installed by a user. That can be also installed by user vectors.
User can be tricked to install malicious program. See Trojan Horse.
And this is maybe the most hideous and harder to detect one.
Installed during design.
Okay.
Is a hidden, secret entry point into a program. Allows those who know access bypassing usual security procedures. Is commonly used by developers for testing. Is a threat when left in production software allowing exploit by attackers.
This is why Apple never agrees to leave a backdoor for the FBI and such. Let's find. Okay. Apple denies the backdoor because it reduces the security for everyone. Okay, you see an article on Wired. Okay.
The FBI wanted a backdoor to the iPhone. Tim Cook said no.
The agency, the agency wanted to crack the iPhone of Said Farouk, a suspect in 2015 San Bernardino shooting. The Apple CEO took a stand. You see, because putting a backdoor will make everyone more vulnerable and may cause other problems. It's very hard to block in operating system. Can be prevented with secure development lifecycle. Okay.
The Cyber Kill Chain, Hutchins et al., 2011.
Okay, cyber threat execution and possible steps to kill it. Okay, you see there is reconnaissance, and it may take days, months, or years. Then weaponization, days, months. Delivery, minutes, hours. Exploitation, milliseconds. Installation, seconds. CNC, I think this is command and conquer, hours, days. Action exfiltration, hours, days, years. Okay. So this is the cyber kill chain. Maybe we can find some more information about it. Okay, and let's see. Okay.
Developed by Lockheed Martin, the Cyber Kill Chain framework is part of the intelligence-driven defense model for identification and prevention of cyber intrusions activity. The model identifies what the adversaries must complete in order to achieve their objective.
Okay.
The 7 steps of the cyber kill chain enhance visibility into an attack and enrich an analyst's understanding of an adversary's tactics, techniques, and procedures.
Okay, A, advanced targeted coordinated proposal. Yes, for let's say high profile targets, targeted attacks are also being done. Persistent, it may remain month after month, year after year. Threat, persons with intent, opportunity, and capability. So reconnaissance, harvesting email addresses, conference information, and such. Weaponization, coupling exploit with backdoor into delivery payload. Delivering weaponized bundle to the victim via email, web, USB, etc. Exploitation, exploiting a vulnerability to execute code on victim system. Installation, installing malware on the asset. Command and control, command channel for remote manipulation of victim. Actions on objectives with hands-on keyboard access. Intruders accomplish their original goals. Okay. So let's continue.
Logic bomb. One of oldest types of malicious software. Code embedded in legitimate program. Activated when specified conditions met. E.g., presence, absence of some file, particular date, time, particular user. Causes damage when triggered. Modify, delete files, disks, halt machine, etc.
Okay, Trojan Horse.
Trojan Horse. Program with hidden side effects, e.g. a backdoor program is usually superficially attractive, e.g. game, SW upgrade etc., performs additional tasks when executed, allows attacker to indirectly gain access they do not have directly, often used to propagate a virus, worm or to install a backdoor, or simply to destroy data.
Okay, you see, this is important. Program is usually superficially attractive, e.g. game or software upgrade, you see. Performs additional tasks when executed, allow attackers to indirectly gain access they do not have directly, often use it to propagate a virus worm or to install a backdoor, and or simply destroy data. Malicious mobile code.
Malicious mobile code. Program, script, macro that runs unchanged.
Okay.
On homogeneous platforms, e.g. Windows. Will only affect specific platforms. On heterogeneous platforms. Will affect any platform that supports script, macro language. E.g. Office macros.
This is also another common methodology that I have seen, because people are usually tricked into the activate the macro inside an Office document such as Excel document, which is one of the most common way. However, executing Excel scripts or scripts in Office documents is extremely dangerous. Therefore, you should never allow execution of a script inside an Office document. Those scripts can do literally anything to your computer.
Transmitted from remote system to local system and then executed on local system. To inject Trojan horse, spyware, virus, worm etc. which can directly perform specific attacks, such as unauthorized data access, root compromise, sabotage, indirectly infect other systems and thereby spread.
Okay, viruses.
Piece of software that infects programs.
Okay, specific to operating system and hardware, taking advantage of their details and weaknesses. This is true because the operating system is a unique environment for viruses. What I mean is, it would be different to infect a Linux system or Windows system or macOS system or Android system. Okay, therefore, specific to operating system and the hardware, a virus written for Linux may not work on Windows or would highly to not work on macOS and such. So this is the important detail.
A typical virus goes through phases of dormant propagation triggering execution.
Okay, worms.
Replicating programs that propagate over net, access remote systems via network protocols to open ports, attack vulnerable processes in remote systems, can also use email, remote exec, remote login. Can have characteristics like a virus, dormant, triggering, execution, propagation and replication, propagation phase, searches for other systems to infect, may disguise itself as a system process when executing.
Okay.
Morris worm, the first and the best known worm, 1988, released by Robert Morris Jr., paralyzed the Internet of 1988, exploited vulnerabilities in Unix systems.
You see, at 1988, the internet was so in low bandwidth, therefore probably the worm was able to halt the entire internet itself. You see, paralyzed the internet. Also in 1988, I suspect that there weren't any proper defense system against worms or malicious software.
Wannacry worm, epidemic infection in May 2017, exploits known, but unpatched, vulnerability in Windows XP.
This is also extremely famous. And let's look for this one.
Wannacry ransomware attack.
So you see, the ransomware attacks are the worst ones. They encrypt your files and they request money from you to give you the encryption password so that you can decrypt your files. Especially if you have important files encrypted on your computer, you are likely to pay them with the hope of getting the key. And in some cases, you may never get the key, and your files may remain forever encrypted, even though you have paid the money. So ransomware is the worst type of attack. Okay.
The Wannacry ransomware attack was a May 2017 worldwide cyber attack by the Wannacry ransomware cryptoworm, which targeted computers running the Microsoft Windows operating system by encrypting data and demanding ransom payments in the Bitcoin cryptocurrency. Citation needed. It propagated through Eternal Blue, an exploit discovered by the United States National Security Agency (NSA) for older Windows systems. Eternal Blue was stolen and leaked by a group called the Shadow Brokers at least a year prior to the attack. While Microsoft had released patches previously to close the exploit, much of Wannacry's spread was from organizations that had not applied these, or were using older Windows systems that were past their end of life. These patches are imperative to an organization's cybersecurity, but many were not applied because of needing 24/7 operation, risking having applications that used to work break, inconvenience, or other reasons. The attack was halted within a few days of its discovery due to emergency patches released by Microsoft and the discovery of a kill switch that prevented infected computers from spreading Wannacry further. The attack was estimated to have affected more than 200,000 computers across 150 countries, with total damages ranging from hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. Security experts believed from preliminary evaluation of the worm that the attack originated from North Korea or agencies working for the country.
Okay, if I remember correctly, the kill switch was a domain registration. Let me check that. It was so easy to do so because of that. Okay. Okay. Kill switch, yes.
As he worked to reverse engineer samples of Wannacry on Friday, Malware Attack discovered that the ransomware's programmers had built it to check whether a certain gibberish URL led to a live web page. Curious why the ransomware would look for that domain, Malware Attack registered it himself. As it turns out, that $10.69 investment was enough to shut the whole thing down, for now, at least.
Okay, you see, since the virus was initially checking a gibberish URL, when they registered it and make it online, the attack has been slowed down or even kill switched. Okay, so I was remembering correctly. Also, this is an important fact that I want to talk about. Applying Windows patches sometimes broke your existing software workflow and make them not working anymore. Therefore, it is sometimes let's say risky operation to do. Thus, some companies prefer to not update their Windows frequently when a new patch has arrived. However, you see, using a not updated software may have severe consequences. So you should always update your software.
In December 2017, the United States, United Kingdom and Australia formally asserted that North Korea was behind the attack. 5. A new variant of Wannacry forced Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, to temporarily shut down several of its chip fabrication factories in August 2018. The virus spread to 10,000 machines in TSMC's most advanced facilities. 6.
Okay, so currently ransomware attack is still very popular because the attackers getting money directly from this. They are directly benefiting, not only harming your computer, but they are directly getting money by using Bitcoin, which is extremely hard to track. So Bitcoin is actually, from this point of view, it is a bad thing for hackers or illegal activities and such. Okay, let's continue.
Worm propagation speed.
You see slow start phase, then it starts into the fast spread phase, then slow finish phase. Number of infected hosts, you see it is 10-fold 5. Okay, what is a botnet?
What is a botnet? A botnet is a collection of computers infected with malicious software agents, robots, that can be controlled remotely by an attacker. Owners of bot computers are typically unaware of infection.
Okay.
Botnet controller is called a bot herder or bot master.
Okay.
Botnets execute malicious functions in a coordinated way. Send spam email, collect identity information, denial of service attacks, create more bots, Bitcoin mining.
Okay, one of the most common thing that botnets are used for is denial of service attacks. If we want to take down a strong website or a service with DDoS attack, denial of service attack, you need to have lots of network power. And with the introduction of intelligent devices to our lives, such as intelligent refrigerator or intelligent vacuum, robotic vacuums, or intelligent copy machines or such, or most commonly the IT cameras, you see, they are usually extremely vulnerable to the external attacks. Most of them uses default passwords because of the ignorance of the owners. So they are a very good source for hackers to use them to take down a website or a service by DDoS attack, or they may be used for Bitcoin mining, which is also beneficial for hackers.
A botnet is typically named after the malware used to infect. Multiple botnets can use the same malware, but can still be operated by different criminal groups.
Okay, you see the botnet architecture is like this. There is a bot herder which controls and manipulates the bots. Then there are bot computers. You see they are infected already. Then they attack the uninfected computers victims. Okay. So DDoS flood types, there are different DDoS flood types. DDoS is really important. So let's get some more information related to botnet than the DDoS. Okay. Okay, Kaspersky. I think from Kaspersky site we can get some useful information.
What is a botnet?
Okay, you see, botnets, how to prevent your computer from becoming a zombie. This is true because when they infect your computer, they use your computer as a zombie. After connection to a command and control server, CNC, the infected computer or smartphone checks for updated malicious code, carries out commands, steals and uploads personal information. Okay, what's a botnet? A network of infected computers remotely controlled by cyber criminals. Your computer could be part of a botnet. This is true, you may not be aware of it. Operates as a relay network for criminal activities. This is also true. Let's say someone did some illegal activity by using your computer, then the officials would get to your home because they would, when they track back the cyber crime, that would lead to your computer because of your internet is being used. So it is also extremely dangerous from legal point as well. Utilizes your computer's processing power and your network. Characteristic of a zombie computer can be a PC, Mac, or even smartphone. Even a smartphone often appears to be operating normally. Often you are not aware of it. Usually has no security software or it is outdated, ineffective. Okay, and what are the consequences? Huge internet bills. Yes, they may make illegal purchases or they may use your network bandwidth and causes you to pay extra money fee. Slow and unstable computer performance. If they use your computer for mining, it will slow down your computer. Potential legal implications if your computer is compromised. This is true. Let's say an illegal thing is done by using your network, then the officials would get to you that being suspicious of you, and stolen password, personal data, so then you may get exposed. What's a botnet? A network of infected computers remotely controlled by cyber criminals. Your computer could be a part of botnet. Joins DDoS attacks on other computers or websites. Sends spam messages. Sending spam messages is usually harder because most of the personal network ISPs, internet service providers, doesn't allow mailing. So it is a harder thing, but if they also can control your logged in email, it is possible. How to avoid becoming of a botnet? Install a proper real-time security solution. Ensure regular updates of installed software. And pay particular attention to Windows updates, Adobe Flash, Adobe Reader, Oracle, Java, and your web browser. You'll see these are the most common ways of getting infected: from Flash, Adobe Reader, from PDF files usually, Oracle, Java. You see some applications requires Java to be running on your computer and your web browser. Okay, let's continue.
Botnet definition.
Okay, this is important to learn.
Botnets are networks of hijacked computer devices used to carry out various scams and cyber attacks. The term botnet is formed from the words robot and network. Assembly of a botnet is usually the infiltration stage of a multi-layer scheme. The bots serve as a tool to automate mass attacks, such as data theft, server crashing, and malware distribution. Botnets use your devices to scam other people or cause disruptions, all without your consent. You might ask, what is a botnet attack and how does it work? To expand this botnet definition, we'll help you understand how botnets are made and how they are used.
Okay, how botnet works?
Botnets are built to grow, automate, and speed up a hacker's ability to carry out larger attacks. One person or even a small team of hackers can only carry out so many actions on their local devices. But, at little cost and a bit of time invested, they can acquire tons of additional machines to leverage for more efficient operations. A bot herder leads a collective of hijacked devices with remote commands. Once they've compiled the bots, a herder uses command programming to drive their next actions. The party taking command duties may have set up the botnet or be operating it as a rental.
Okay, let's continue. You see, this word is also important, rental, because there are groups that get payments to take down web services or websites with DDoS attacks. So rental is, or they give you the access and command of infected computer so that you can do your malicious things, cyber crimes.
Zombie computers, or bots, refer to each malware-infected user device that's been taken over for use in the botnet. These devices operate mindlessly under commands designed by the bot herder. Basic stages of building a botnet can be simplified into a few steps. Prep and expose. Hacker exploits a vulnerability to expose users to malware. Infect. User devices are infected with malware that can take control of their device. Activate. Hackers mobilize infected devices to carry out attacks. Stage 1 exposure starts with hackers finding a vulnerability in a website, application, or human behavior. The goal is to set the user up for being unknowingly exposed to a malware infection. You'll commonly see hackers exploit security issues in software or websites or deliver the malware through emails and other online messages. In Stage 2, the user gets infected with the botnet malware upon taking an action that compromises their device. Many of these methods either involve users being persuaded via social engineering to download a special Trojan virus. Other attackers may be more aggressive by using a drive-by download upon visiting an infected site. Regardless of the delivery method, cybercriminals ultimately breach the security of several users' computers.
Okay, you see, we are always encountering the word social engineering. This is, in today's world, one of the most common way of infecting other people's computers, devices, and such. Okay.
Once the hacker is ready, Stage 3 initiates by taking control of each computer. The attacker organizes all of the infected machines into a network of bots that they can remotely manage. Often, the cybercriminal will seek to infect and control thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of computers. The cybercriminal can then act as the boss of a large zombie network, i.e., a fully assembled and active botnet. You're probably still asking, what does a botnet do? Once infected, a zombie computer allows access to admin-level operations, such as reading and writing system data, gathering the user's personal data, sending files and other data, monitoring the user's activities, searching for vulnerabilities in other devices, installing and running any applications.
Okay, so you see, reading and writing system data as usual, as expected, gathering user personal data so they can use it against you, sending files and other data. This is for this may be used to infect other people's computers. Monitoring users' activity. This is espionage, as you can see. Searching for vulnerabilities in other devices that are connected to your network. Installing and running other applications. Okay.
What is botnet controllable? Candidates for botnet recruitment can be any device that can access an internet connection. Many devices we use today have some form of computer within them, even ones you might not consider. Nearly any computer-based internet device is vulnerable to a botnet, meaning the threat is growing constantly. To protect yourself, take note of some common devices that are hijacked into botnets.
Okay, so this is important. Traditional computers, we already know them.
Traditional computers like desktops and laptops that run on Windows OS or Mac OS have long been popular targets for botnet construction.
Okay.
Mobile devices have become another target as more people continue to use them. Smartphones and tablets have notably been included in botnet attacks of the past.
But we haven't come to the most crowded one yet.
Internet infrastructure hardware used to enable and support internet connections may also be co-opted into botnets. Network routers and web servers are known to be targets.
Okay, now we come the main source of botnets in today's world.
Internet of Things (IoT) devices include any connected devices that share data between each other via the internet. Alongside computers and mobile devices, examples might include
Okay, so this is really important to check them out.
smart home devices, thermometers, security cameras, televisions, speakers, etc.
You see, even thermometers can be a botnet, a part of botnet, a zombie device. I have even seen that a pump on a fishing aquarium was being used as a botnet device. You see how much they can exploit. Let's find it. How does it work? Okay. One moment. I don't remember the word of. Okay. Aquarium use it as botnet. Okay, here the news that I have read about this.
A smart fish tank left a casino vulnerable to hackers.
When you hear the word hacker, what do you see?
Most people know about phishing, but one casino recently learned about the dangers of actual fish tanks. Hackers attempted to steal data from a North American casino through a fish tank connected to the internet, according to a report from security firm Darktrace. Despite extra security precautions set up on the fish tank, hackers still managed to compromise the tank to send data to a device in Finland before the threat was discovered and stopped. Someone used the fish tank to get into the network, and once they were in the fish tank, they scanned and found other vulnerabilities and moved laterally to other places in the network. Justin Fear, Director for Cyber Intelligence and Analysis at Darktrace, explained to CNN Tech. As internet-connected gadgets and appliances become more common, there are more ways for bad guys to gain access to networks and take advantage of insecure devices. The fish tank, for instance, was connected to the internet to automatically feed the fish and keep their environment comfortable, but it became a weak link in the casino's security. The unnamed casino's rogue fish tank is one of 9 unusual threats that Darktrace identified on corporate networks published in a report Thursday. Related, widespread cyberattack takes down sites worldwide. The report cites examples compiled from Darktrace's threat detection technology. Darktrace makes security technology that sits on a company's network and monitors the activity taking place. That could be anything from data transferred between computers or actions taken by a connected coffee maker. When the technology notices an anomaly, like a device that doesn't belong or data being sent somewhere it shouldn't, it alerts the company's security team.
Okay.
In another example of an unusual attack, smart drawing pads connected to insecure Wi-Fi were used to send data to websites around the world in what's called a denial of service attack. A hacker had scanned the internet looking for vulnerable devices and exploited them to try and flood other websites with too much traffic. We've seen cybercriminals leverage connected devices for destructive purposes before. Last year, the Mirai botnet took control of smart home devices, like security cameras, all over the world, effectively turning them into zombie machines directing web traffic to take down popular websites like Netflix and Twitter. Fear, a former U.S. intelligence contractor, says he anticipates threats coming from more unexpected places. Phishing emails will be one way hackers can get onto systems. But things like insecure fish tanks connected to the internet will be another. In the current cyber climate with political and corporate espionage, I think you're going to start to see attackers, whether nation state or criminal, having to get more creative in their attack vectors, Fear said.
Okay, you see, let's see what are being used in these attacks. For example, a fish tank, which you may never expected, or drawing pads. You see, smart drawing pads connected to internet, or anything that is connected to the internet can be used as a part of botnet. Okay, so whenever you see a device is connected to the internet, then you should consider that it may be used as a part of a botnet. Okay. All right, and let's see information related to Ddos, because it is also important. Okay, let's see. What is Ddos?
What is a DDoS attack? DDoS meaning. Distributed network attacks are often referred to as distributed denial of service (DDoS) attacks. This type of attack takes advantage of the specific capacity limits that apply to any network resources, such as the infrastructure that enables a company's website. The DDoS attack will send multiple requests to the attacked web resource, with the aim of exceeding the website's capacity to handle multiple requests, and prevent the website from functioning correctly.
Okay, this is the key point of a DDoS attack. The aim here is preventing that website from functioning as normally by sending exceeding amount of requests. So let's say your website can handle 100,000 users at a time. If you send your website, if 1 million user is sent to that website in a short amount of time, what would happen? Then legitimate users would not be able to access and use your website, because it would be taken over by the bots, which brings you no benefit and destroys your reputation, makes you lose money. So this is the key point of the DDoS: exceeding the amount of capacity that you have, and making legitimate users, preventing legitimate users to access and use your services by over, let's say, exceeding your available resources. Okay.
Typical targets for DDoS attacks include internet shopping sites, online casinos, any business or organization that depends on providing online services.
Okay, one another bad side of DDoS attack is that it is impossible to prevent unless you pay a lot of money to get a lot of bandwidth or computer power. Because you paying extra money for extra bandwidth and computing power is expensive, and if you don't need it, if you don't have that many users, that many clients, it is a waste of money. Therefore, you cannot take precaution to DDoS unless you pay extra money for the services, which would reduce your income and make you lose money, because it is impossible to prevent it. This is the bad side of DDoS. Whatever you do, even your system is extremely secure, even if your system is extremely secure, there is no way to prevent it from happening. My server was also once got attack of DDoS, and it was unreachable until the attack has been cancelled by the attackers. Okay, there were nothing that I could do. This is the bad side, bad part of the DDoS attack, that you can't prevent it unless you pay extra money. Okay.
How a DDoS attack works. Network resources, such as web servers, have a finite limit to the number of requests that they can service simultaneously. In addition to the capacity limit of the server, the channel that connects the server to the internet will also have a finite bandwidth capacity. Whenever the number of requests exceeds the capacity limits of any component of the infrastructure, the level of service is likely to suffer in one of the following ways. The response to requests will be much slower than normal. Some, or all, users' requests may be totally ignored.
Okay. So you see, we have finite resources and we can get more resources. However, then we have to pay extra money unnecessarily. Therefore, it is a balance thing, trade-off.
Usually, the attacker's ultimate aim is the total prevention of the web resource's normal functioning, a total denial of service. The attacker may also request payment for stopping the attack. In some cases, a DDoS attack may even be an attempt to discredit or damage a competitor's business.
You see, you want to take down your competitor, then you can rent a botnet to attack your competitor website, web service, or whatever, and take him out of your competition. An example. This is illegal, hideous, but it can be done.
Using a botnet zombie network to deliver a DDoS attack. In order to send an extremely large number of requests to the victim resource, the cybercriminal will often establish a zombie network of computers that the criminal has infected. Because the criminal has control over the actions of every infected computer in the zombie network, the sheer scale of the attack can be overwhelming for the victim's web resources.
Okay, this is the key point. Assume that the zombie network herder has acquired 1 million devices. You see, 1 million. And your website can support up to 100,000 clients at a time. And assume that each zombie device starts behaving like a 10 simultaneous client to your server. Then what can you do? Nothing, because they would fill up your entire resources, your finite resources, and then the real users will not be able to access and use your website or web services. Okay, this is the key point, because there are so many IoT devices in the world right now, and most of them have very weak security to prevent becoming a zombie. So DDoS attackers are getting powerful each day with this vulnerability having devices count increasing. Let's see how many IoT devices there are. Let's see an estimation. Okay, you see by the end of 2018 there were 23 billion. If an hacker achieves to infect only 1 in 1,000 of them, how much would it make? It would make 22 million devices, which is enough to take down even massive websites. Okay, even massive ones.
The nature of today's DDoS threats. In the early to mid-2000s, this kind of criminal activity was quite common. However, the number of successful DDoS attacks has been reducing. This decrease in DDoS attacks is likely to have resulted from the following: police investigations that have resulted in the arrest of criminals across the world, technical countermeasures that have been successful against DDoS attacks, other articles and links related to distributed network attacks, DDoS.
Okay, the current most effective way of preventing DDoS is using cloud services. Okay, such as the biggest one I will show you. Cloudflare. This is the biggest service that prevents getting your computers, getting your services from DDoS. How does it work? And let me show you. Because this service, this website, this Cloudflare is extremely big, therefore it takes too many both computers to take down Cloudflare services. Therefore, it is not very doable for hackers, and therefore it is the best way of securing your server. Okay.
Understanding Cloudflare DDoS Protection English US. Overview. A distributed denial of service attack (DDoS) seeks to make an online service unavailable to its end users. For all plan types, Cloudflare provides unmetered mitigation of DDoS attacks at layer 3, 4, and 7. Cloudflare does not bill by attack size and does not have a cap on attack size, type, or duration. Cloudflare's network is built to automatically monitor and mitigate large DDoS attacks. Caching your content at Cloudflare also protects your website against small DDoS attacks, but uncached assets require additional manual response to DDoS attack. Additionally, Cloudflare helps mitigate smaller DDoS attacks for domains on any plan if.
Okay.
The HTTP 52x error rate is above 150 errors per second, and the current error rate is at least 5 times the average error rate from the past 7 days.
Okay, how does it do it? I will try to find it. Okay. No, not this article is explaining it. Okay, so let's read this one.
What is DDoS mitigation? DDoS mitigation refers to the process of successfully protecting a targeted server or network from a distributed denial of service (DDoS) attack. By utilizing specially designed network equipment or a cloud-based protection service, a targeted victim is able to mitigate the incoming threat.
Okay, how does it do that? You see routing, route traffic across multiple data centers, detect the fingerprints of an attack as it occurs, response, drop malicious traffic at the network edge. This is important. If you can drop the malicious traffic at the network edge, then your system resources wouldn't be getting used. Use machine learning to use machine learning to adapt to the attack pattern. Okay, let's see.
There are 4 stages of mitigating a DDoS attack using a cloud-based provider. Detection. In order to stop a distributed attack, a website needs to be able to distinguish an attack from a high volume of normal traffic.
This is important.
If a product release or other announcement has a website swamped with legitimate new visitors, the last thing the site wants to do is throttle them or otherwise stop them from viewing the content of the website. IP reputation, common attack patterns, and previous data assist in proper detection.
You see, as you become the main service of cloud protection, then you can get a lot of data information to process and assess the types of attacks, the IP reputation, and so many other things. Okay, this is what also makes the Cloudflare the best of DDoS mitigation for very cheap prices.
Response. In this step, the DDoS protection network responds to an incoming identified threat by intelligently dropping malicious bot traffic and absorbing the rest of the traffic. Using WAF page rules for application layer L7 attacks or another filtration process to handle lower level L3 per liters 4 attacks such as memcached or NTP amplification, a network is able to mitigate the attempt at disruption.
Okay.
Routing. By intelligently routing traffic, an effective DDoS mitigation solution will break the remaining traffic into manageable chunks, preventing denial of service. Adaptation. A good network analyzes traffic for patterns such as repeating offending IP blocks, particular attacks coming from certain countries, or particular protocols being used improperly. By adapting to attack patterns, a protection service can harden itself against future attacks.
Okay, so let's continue. Okay, and
Choosing a DDoS mitigation service. Traditional DDoS mitigation solutions involve purchasing equipment that would live on site and filter incoming traffic. This approach involves purchasing and maintaining expensive equipment, and also relied on having a network capable of absorbing an attack. If a DDoS attack is large enough, it can take out the network infrastructure upstream, preventing any on-site solution from being effective. When purchasing a cloud-based DDoS mitigation service, certain characteristics should be evaluated.
okay, you see, even if you get the most expensive hardware, when your network bandwidth is getting exceeded, there is nothing you can do. Because simply by increasing the number of attacking zombie devices, they can consume all of your network bandwidth, therefore make your DDoS protection not working. Okay.
Scalability. An effective solution needs to be able to adapt to the needs of a growing business as well as respond to the growing size of DDoS attacks. Attacks larger than 2 terabits per second (TBPs) have occurred, and there's no indication that the trend in attack traffic size is downward. Cloudflare's network is capable of handling DDoS attacks considerably larger than have ever occurred.
Okay, 2 terabits per second is an extreme number, extreme. When you check your computer's local network card, you will see a maximum up to 1 gigabit per second from fiber connection or your local network connection. And imagine your web server or your web service getting attacked by 2 terabits bandwidth per second. It is impossible. Such network would cost, I don't know, maybe millions of dollars per month, or tens of thousands of dollars, or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you see, the size of attacks can be enormous, and preventing them without using cloud-based services is almost impossible. Okay, and what I want is, I want you to understand its working mechanism. Okay. Okay, there are YouTube videos as well. Okay, let's see if there is a good article. Okay, Cloudflare, the juggernaut of DDoS protection. Yes, it is true. They also provide free services as well. But how they prevent? Okay, Cloudflare, Wikipedia. Maybe there is information here. You see, even Wikipedia was a victim of DDoS and their services was unavailable to the users. Even they can take down even the Wikipedia, which usually gets millions of requests per second. Can you imagine that? How much traffic would be needed to take down the Wikipedia? You see, including some of the largest DDoS attacks in history. Okay. Controversies, security and privacy. Okay, anyway, I will just continue. So now you know the DDoS as well. The web application security challenge, application attack which can be prevented by firewall, custom developed application on code, application server, web server, hardened operating system, another firewall. Okay, and what is SQL?
What is SQL? Structured Query Language, interface to relational database systems. Allows for insert, update, delete, and retrieval of data in a database. ANSI, ISO standard, used extensively in web applications. Example, select product name from products where product ID equals 40.
Okay.
SQL at back end of websites. 1. Take input from a web form via HTTP methods such as POST or GET and pass it to a server-side application. 2. Application process opens connection to SQL database. 3. Query database with SQL and retrieve reply. 4. Process SQL reply and send results back to user.
Okay, this is the usual usage of SQL at the back end of the website. So what is SQL injection?
What is SQL injection? Database system misinterpretation of input data. Attacker disguises SQL commands as data input. Disguised SQL commands equals injected SQL commands. With SQL injection, an attacker can get complete control of database, no matter how well the system is patched, no matter how well the firewall is configured.
Okay, this is really important. With his SQL injection, the attacker can get complete control of the database because they would be using your regular interaction with the client. Okay, because it is your programmer's fault that the programmer, the developer, is not taking the necessary precautions, is leaving system vulnerable itself. It is like you are opening your door to the attackers, to the hackers without any protection. The SQL injection is like that.
Vulnerability exists when web application fails to sanitize data input before sending to it. Database flaws in web application, not in SQL database.
Okay, sanitizing the data is very important. You should not take anything that is coming. You should not take as it is, as raw, anything that is coming from client. Okay, you should sanitize your data. So what is SQL injection?
What is SQL injection? For example, if input field asks for a product number, but the malicious user inputs 40 or 1 equals 1. The result SQL command becomes, select product name from products where product ID equals 40 or 1 equals 1. 1 equals 1 is always true, so the where clause will always be satisfied, even if product ID does not equal 40. All product records will be returned. Data leak.
And this is the least dangerous way. They can use this to log into other users' accounts or delete your data, modify your data, and do whatever you want with your website or your, let's say, your database. Okay. All right. So maybe we can find a better article for you to get a better idea.
SQL injection. SQL injection is a code injection technique that might destroy your database. SQL injection is one of the most common web hacking techniques. SQL injection is the placement of malicious code in SQL statements via web page input. SQL in web pages. SQL injection usually occurs when you ask a user for input, like their username, user ID, and instead of a name, id, the user gives you an SQL statement that you will unknowingly run on your database. Look at the following example, which creates a select statement by adding a variable, txt user id, to a select string. The variable is fetched from user input get request string.
Okay, so you see, this is an example type of SQL injection which might occur. You are getting the user ID from the user and you are expecting user to provide user ID. What if user provides something else? And here we are directly executing the user input against our database, okay, which is not the way, which is leaving our system vulnerable and open to SQL injection attacks. Okay, let's continue.
SQL injection based on 1 equals 1 is always true. Look at the example above again. The original purpose of the code was to create an SQL statement to select a user with a given user id. If there is nothing to prevent a user from entering wrong input, the user can enter some smart input like this.
User ID 105 or 1 equal 1.
Then, the SQL statement will look like this.
This means that it will return every user from the users table, okay, because 1 equal 1 is a satisfying condition, therefore all of the users will be returned.
The SQL above is valid and will return all rows from the users table, since OR 1 equals 1 is always true. Does the example above look dangerous? What if the users table contains names and passwords? The SQL statement above is much the same as this.
Okay.
A hacker might get access to all the usernames and passwords in a database by simply inserting 105 OR 1 equals 1 into the input field.
All right. For example, there is another way. They can also use to log in other people's accounts. You see, if you are checking the user has entered correct password or not, like this, where name equal to username and password equal to user password, then the hacker might enter something like this, name equal to something or equal to something like this, and password is equal to something like this. Therefore, with this statement, they can log into anyone's account, okay? And here the real danger.
SQL injection based on batched SQL statements. Most databases support batched SQL statement. A batch of SQL statements is a group of 2 or more SQL statements, separated by semicolons. The SQL statement below will return all rows from the users table, then delete the suppliers table.
Okay, it can be made like this. So you are expecting from user the user ID, however the user is providing 105, then semicolon. That means that this query has already ended. Then the next query starts, which is drop table suppliers. Then your entire table would be erased permanently.
Use SQL parameters for protection. To protect a website from SQL injection, you can use SQL parameters. SQL parameters are values that are added to an SQL query at execution time in a controlled manner. ASP.NET Razor example.
Okay, in C#, you need to use parameterized queries to prevent SQL injection, and in PHP there are also other frameworks. What is parameterized query C#? Okay, let me show you. Okay. Okay, it explains how it works. Okay, so the solution is,
to resolve this issue you need to do 2 things. Always use a parameterized query. Input validations on both the client and server side.
okay, both means that you should never trust client side. Therefore, you have to sanitize your data and check your data is valid or not at the server side as well. If you are expecting a user ID, then simply you can check that whether the entered input from the client is integer or let's say numeric or not at the server side. This check would prevent all kind of attacks. Or alternatively, you can use parameterized query. In this case, all of the input coming from the user will be let's say treated as a data as a parameter, not like a not like an SQL commands. Therefore, the injection would be prevented. Okay, so with parameterized query, you can prevent SQL injection successfully. All right. So okay. Okay,
Stored XSS.
So what is stored XSS? The attacker input to website in the form of attack script described as user content, web server trusted by victim, stored and display attack script on the web page, access web page, attack script sent in web page to the client, script executes. So stored XSS is basically means that when you display a page, a malicious script sent by another user or hacker is being displayed on your page. Therefore, with that, the attacker can steal your passwords, cookies, or download and install malware on your computer or such. So we will see about what is this.
Stored XSS. Data provided by users to a web application is stored persistently on server, in database, file system, and later displayed to users in a web page. Typical example, online message boards. Attacker uploads data containing malicious script to server. Every time the vulnerable web page is visited, the malicious script gets executed in client browser. Attacker needs to inject script just once.
For example, let's say I am messaging with my friend on Facebook. Then my friend is a hacker and sends me a message which includes a malicious script. If Facebook does not truncate it or sanitize it, then when I view my friend's message on the screen, the script would get executed and my computer may get infected. He may steal my password, he may change my uh, settings or other things. You see, this is about XSS attack. In this case, it is about the web service you are using is not taking precaution. Therefore, when you display that page, you are getting infected and malicious script is being run. This is a really important thing. When you get user input and display it to another user, you have to always sanitize data. Never allow any script.
Preventing Sql Injection and XSS. Validate all user-entered parameters, check data types and lengths, disallow unwanted data, HTML tags, JavaScript, SQL commands, escape questionable characters, ticks, semicolon, brackets, etc.
Okay, you see, first way is checking, second way is disallowing, and third way is escaping questionable characters. Therefore, they will not be getting executed.
Hide information about error handling. Error messages divulge information that can be used by hacker. Error messages must not reveal potentially sensitive information.
By default, some programming languages shows the full error message to the user when it happens. You should not let that happen because it may include some important information as well. Therefore, you should handle the errors, unhandled errors, and does not show error message to the user, such as okay, I am seeing this sometimes, and I will try. Okay, something like this. Okay, if you leave it as it is, you see your full error may be displayed to the user. You should not that happening. Okay, you should prevent full error message to be displayed to the user, and you should display a custom message. About Xss attack, let's get some more information. It is also called as cross-site scripting.
Cross-site scripting.
One moment.
In this section, we'll explain what cross-site scripting is, describe the different varieties of cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, and spell out how to find and prevent cross-site. What is cross-site scripting? XSS. Cross-site scripting, also known as XSS, is a web security vulnerability that allows an attacker to compromise the interactions that users have with a vulnerable application. It allows an attacker to circumvent the same origin policy, which is designed to segregate different websites from each other. Cross-site scripting vulnerabilities normally allow an attacker to masquerade as a victim user, to carry out any actions that the user is able to perform, and to access any of the user's data. If the victim user has privileged access within the application, then the attacker might be able to gain full control over all of the application's functionality and data. How does XSS work? Cross-site scripting works by manipulating a vulnerable website so that it returns malicious JavaScript to users. When the malicious code executes inside a victim's browser, the attacker can fully compromise their interaction with the application.
You see, for example, if the website you are using is displaying a message as raw, the malicious user can send you a script link like this and execute that script on your computer when you read that message and do whatever she wants. Okay.
What are the types of XSS attacks? There are three main types of XSS attacks. These are reflected XSS, where the malicious script comes from the current HTTP request. Storedxss, where the malicious script comes from the website's database. DOM-based XSS, where the vulnerability exists in client-side code rather than server-side code. Reflected cross-site scripting. Reflected XSS is the simplest variety of cross-site scripting. It arises when an application receives data in an HTTP request and includes that data within the immediate response in an unsafe way. Here is a simple example of a reflected XSS vulnerability: https://insecure-website.com/status ? Message equals all plus is plus well less than p greater than status, all is well, less than p greater than. The application doesn't perform any other processing of the data, so an attacker can easily construct an attack like this: https://insecure-website.com/status ? Message equals less than script greater than asterisk plus bad plus stuff plus here plus asterisk less than script greater than less than p greater than status less than script greater than asterisk bad stuff here asterisk less than script greater than less than p greater than. If the user visits the URL constructed by the attacker, then the attacker's script executes in the user's browser in the context of that user's session with the application. At that point, the script can carry out any action and retrieve any data to which the user has access.
Okay.
Stored cross-site scripting. Storedxss, also known as persistent or second-order XSS, arises when an application receives data from an untrusted source and includes that data within its later HTTP responses in an unsafe way. The data in question might be submitted to the application via HTTP requests, for example, comments on a blog post, user nicknames in a chat room, or contact details on a customer order. In other cases, the data might arrive from other untrusted sources, for example, a webmail application displaying messages received over SMTP, a marketing application displaying social media posts, or a network monitoring application displaying packet data from network traffic. Here is a simple example of a Storedxss vulnerability. A message board application lets users submit messages, which are displayed to other users.
Okay, here the example is you are simply displaying the message inside p tags without any other processing. If that is the case, then the malicious user can post a message with script and it would be displayed to every user which visits that page. Okay.
The application doesn't perform any other processing of the data, so an attacker can easily send a message that attacks other users.
Okay.
DOM-based cross-site scripting. DOM-based XSS, also known as DOM-XSS, arises when an application contains some client-side JavaScript that processes data from an untrusted source in an unsafe way, usually by writing the data back to the DOM. In the following example, an application uses some JavaScript to read the value from an input field and write that value to an element within the HTML.
Okay, something like this. You see here, it gets the search element on the DOM on the here, you see, with its ID by search. Then it gets results by result ID. Then it changes this results element inside inner HTML with the value getting from search.
If the attacker can control the value of the input field, they can easily construct a malicious value that causes their own script to execute. In a typical case, the input field would be populated from part of the HTTP request, such as a URL query string parameter, allowing the attacker to deliver an attack using a malicious URL, in the same manner as reflected XSS.
Okay.
What can XSS be used for? An attacker who exploits a cross-site scripting vulnerability is typically able to impersonate or masquerade as the victim user, carry out any action that the user is able to perform, read any data that the user is able to access, capture the user's login credentials, perform virtual defacement of the website, inject Trojan functionality into the website.
Okay, you see, basically, it can be used for anything. It is extremely dangerous. Okay.
Impact of XSS vulnerabilities. The actual impact of an XSS attack generally depends on the nature of the application, its functionality and data, and the status of the compromised user. For example, in a brochureware application, where all users are anonymous and all information is public, the impact will often be minimal. In an application holding sensitive data, such as banking transactions, emails, or healthcare records, the impact will usually be serious. If the compromised user has elevated privileges within the application, then the impact will generally be critical, allowing the attacker to take full control of the vulnerable application and compromise all users and their data.
Okay, so now we know the attacks. So this is important. One of the let's read each of them.
How to prevent XSS attacks.
This is important. Be careful.
Preventing cross-site scripting is trivial in some cases but can be much harder depending on the complexity of the application and the ways it handles user-controllable data. In general, effectively preventing XSS vulnerabilities is likely to involve a combination of the following measures: filter input on arrival. At the point where user input is received, filter as strictly as possible based on what is expected or valid input. Encode data on output. At the point where user-controllable data is output in HTTP responses, encode the output to prevent it from being interpreted as active content. Depending on the output context, this might require applying combinations of HTML, URL, JavaScript, and CSS encoding. Use appropriate response headers. To prevent XSS in HTTP responses that aren't intended to contain any HTML or JavaScript, you can use the content type and content type options headers to ensure that browsers interpret the responses in the way you intend. Content security policy. As a last line of defense, you can use Content Security Policy (CSP) to reduce the severity of any XSS vulnerabilities that still occur.
Okay, the most important two are data sanitization on the arrival of data and encoding the data output. I'm going to take a pause. Okay, so let's continue. Okay.
Broken authentication and session management.
Okay, login to website to access service. Alice trying to login and send request to web servers trusted by the user. Provide service and let user stay logged in. The server is doing that. Then email info about website including URL containing session ID is being leaked to Cheshire Cat and access website as Alice and request service. How can this happen? You see, with session ID, another person can mimic as he is the one, because server knows somebody by a unique session ID, and until that session ID expires, it is valid. So this is about broken authentication and session management.
Broken authentication and session MGMNT problem and fix.
For example, I will show you what I mean. Let's log in. Let's look for this. Okay. Let's open this block, for example. Okay, now this web server has generated an ID for me. When I click inspect, and when I go to the cookies, let's see. Let's find the cookies where it is, or from here I can see that from network requests. Okay, here's the request. Okay, you see there is session ID somewhere. Okay, here. Once the attacker obtains this session ID, he can visit this website as me. If I were being logged in, then with these parameters, he would be able to log in the server until this session ID expires without knowing my username or my password. Okay, so this is about session IDs. They are extremely important. They are kept with cookies. This is about that.
User authentication does not necessarily provide continuous authentication assurance. User authentication is only at one point in time. Insecure implementation of session control with a static session ID which is passed in the URL. Unfortunately, this can be misused. Recommendations for session ID must be followed, e.g. freem OWASP.
Okay, let's see what is WASP.
The Open Web Application Security Project (OWASP) is an online community that produces freely available articles, methodologies, documentation, tools, and technologies in the field of web application security. 4.5.
Okay, so the recommendations from Open Web Application Security Project should be followed.
Examples of controls for session ID.
Okay, link session ID to IP would increase security a lot because the hacker cannot have same ID as same IP as me, unlikely to have. Therefore, this would prevent a lot of session ID leaking problems.
Link session ID to e.g. IP address, TLS session ID.
Also, TLS session ID would be unique for that user as well.
OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project. Non-profit organization. Local chapters in most countries, also in Norway. OWASP promotes security awareness and security solutions for web application development. OWASP Top 10 Security Risks identify the most critical security risks of providing online services. The top 10 list also recommends relevant security solutions. OWASP ASVS Application Security Verification Standard specifies requirements for application-level security. Provides and maintains many free tools for scanning and security vulnerability fixing. Top 10 Web Application Risks. 1. Injection. 2. Broken authentication and session management. 3. Cross-site scripting XSS. 4. Insecure direct object references. 5. Security misconfiguration. 6. Sensitive data exposure. 7. Missing function level access control. 8. Cross-site request forgery CSRF. 9. Using components with known vulnerabilities. 10. Unvalidated redirects and forwards.
Okay.
General Data Protection Regulation. EU legislation is translated unchanged. Paragraphs Section 25 and Section 32 are particularly relevant to security, requirement of privacy by design and security by design. IT designers must know the principles of privacy by design and security by design. Otherwise, the system are illegal to use by definition. Fines up to 20 million euros or 4% of revenue. The Norwegian Parliament Storedxss decided on the 10th of April 2018 that IT education programs must have mandatory courses in information security.
Okay, security by design is legal requirement under GDPR. Requirements, operations, training, design, coding, test, and deployment. Okay, agile software development. We are seeing this in the software engineering course. So you can also watch our software engineering course videos as well. It is extremely useful in your professional life. Project planning, select user stories for the next release, break down user story into functions, plan new release, develop, integrate, and test new functionality, release new software, evaluate current system, deploy system. Requirements are specified as stories, each story implemented as sprint, repeated sprint cycles until all stories are implemented. Okay, so secure agile software development. Project planning, collect stakeholder security concerns, select user stories for next release, break down user story into functions, plan new release, identify threat scenarios to control. Okay, this is the important part, this is the key part. It is necessary to identify the threat scenarios to control, and develop, integrate, and test new function, release new software, evaluate system, review security. This is also another key part with agile secure development, and then deploy system.
Secure Agile SDLC is challenging. Add security-related development tasks. Yellow boxes. Security necessarily makes SDLC less agile.
Okay. Okay, end of lecture. I think it is enough for today, and let's upload our slides to our GitHub repository. Okay, I will close this, and one moment. Okay, there's okay, see. Okay, security. Okay. Okay, this was one of the most important lectures we have seen in this course, and I hope you have understood the security concepts and issues. Okay, hopefully see you next week. Try to avoid from coronavirus. Okay, hopefully see you next week.